Meet the app stealing from small business owners. No surprises, it is Etsy.
Etsy's downfall has been a long time coming. From increasing transaction fees to allowing dropshippers to compete against small business owners to maybe the worst thing ever. The use of AI on a platform that was supposed to be dedicated to handmade goods.
Etsy did the classic tech thing of like, oh, you've got a good idea and a good product that people really like, and then you realize that it's actually way more profitable to just screw over both your customers and the people selling on your platform like Walmart and Amazon do, because there's more money in screwing people over than there is in actually being a good, happy, healthy company that solves problems or provides a good service. This happens every time a company goes public or is like bought up by private equity. Suddenly they need to make more money, and to do that, they will do whatever it takes.
As of today, Etsy has lost over 100 million monthly visitors on its site. Over 1.4 million sellers have left the marketplace due to frustration. Their stock is plummeting as sales drop, and their reputation will forever be the marketplace that failed small businesses. If you invested $10,000 into Etsy stock in 2021, in 4 years, you would make a return of negative $4,000. That's how bad of an investment Etsy is. All it takes is 4 years to completely sink a household name. Here's how they do it. In 2021, Etsy was making a lot of money. The coronavirus brought the need for nose masks. Nose masks brought people to Etsy, and the sales were through the roof.
For the month of April, Etsy sold $133 million worth of face masks. That's 12 million face masks.
Etsy stock,
which makes sense, because if you're like a small independent artist and you want to be able to sell your artwork and everyone has to have a face mask, this is like the perfect median in order to express yourself is like face mask. It's kind of like the Twitch boom during the pandemic as well. A lot of stay-at-home or pandemic-specific industries got really big during the pandemic because everybody needed or wanted a service.
Was at the highest it's ever been. Everything was green until it wasn't. 1 year into this moneymaker, and all of a sudden, it stopped. Masks were no longer mandatory, and the insane amounts of money Etsy was pulling from the pandemic dried up. They needed to show investors that they were still able to make money beyond the endless paying customers the pandemic provided. And
there was also a bunch of extra sellers on Etsy during the pandemic, right? Because everybody was like, oh, I got laid off from my job, or I'm not allowed to go into work anymore, or I'm at home all the time, so I've got a bunch of spare time. Well, I'll create something that I enjoy and I'll sell it on Etsy. So you had a lot more buyers because people were forced to purchase things like masks, so you may as well get an embroidered one. You had a lot more sellers because people were forced to stay home, so they may as well pick up a hobby selling the thing they already enjoyed doing. If you enjoyed embroidery and got good at it, well, you may as well sell it on Etsy. And with more buyers and more sellers essentially forced onto the platform because of the circumstances of the pandemic, it makes sense that they were making so much more money.
We're left with two brutal decisions. Compete with the e-commerce big three, or simply make your platform more expensive for sellers already using your site. I'm sure you know what they picked.
Sorry to pause again. I don't think those were their two big decisions. I think they could have just continued to do what they were doing, which was support small indie businesses and just be happy with a slightly lower profit margin. Like, sure, they were never going to become the next big Amazon, Temu, Newegg, Walmart, etc., but they would have had a really good niche in the market that people wanted and were willing to pay for. Lots of people like supporting small businesses because they're not interested in getting cheap mass-produced products from China, and Etsy is like the perfect niche for that. And yeah, I think there's more money right now in them suddenly agreeing to mass-produce everything and get a bunch of cheap drop-shipped goods from other countries, but I don't think that's going to last very long. I think the goodwill is going to fade away, because why would you buy something on Etsy that you can just buy on Amazon or directly from Alibaba? I think in the pursuit of short-term profits, Etsy's probably just killing itself.
2022, Etsy hiked transaction fees from 5% to 6.5%, which to a customer seemed like a small jump, but it devastated small sellers who made little to nothing from their shops.
Everyone's saying that it's just pennies and that, it's only 1.5% and you should just increase your prices. But if we increase our prices, we're passing those prices on to the customer. So I have to eat the price increase, because otherwise I'll risk losing customers.
If you factor in inflation, sellers were putting in more hours and making less money. In addition to this, Etsy introduced a new rule requiring sellers to pay an extra 12.5% if their products are advertised on Google. It felt like
that is insane. 12.5% extra if your product is advertised on Google? Why would you do that? Because at that point, the seller is paying twice, right? Once when they advertise the product on Google, and then once again when they sell the product that they advertise on Google. So they're paying twice. Also, it's good for Etsy if the sellers independently advertise their stuff on Google, because that's advertising that Etsy specifically doesn't have to do, right? If the seller's doing the advertising for their product on Etsy, then people will go to the Etsy website to buy it. And then they might also stick around and buy other stuff. That's good for Etsy. They're adding a fee for people to promote Etsy, which is kind of insane.
Extortion to many sellers. So the Etsy strike movement was born.
Sellers on Etsy beginning, you ready for this? A strike this week.
Beginning April 11th, some Etsy sellers are going on strike to protest transaction fees going up from 5% to 6.5%. a 30% increase. One of the strike organizers explains it was provoked by an email from Etsy's CEO that described a 23% increase in sales in 2021, then announced the increased transaction fee.
Etsy is more successful than ever, but Etsy sellers are going to be making less money than ever before. It really upset a lot of people. I was frustrated and I was angry.
I really thought maybe the Etsy strike will make a difference, but
it didn't. In fact, sellers were likely to get punished for going on strike, as it required them to put their stores on vacation mode, which was known to kill visibility. Meanwhile, Etsy's CEO...
And also, if you go on a strike, if all the good, honest sellers are going on strike, then suddenly there's no good, honest sellers selling on the platform, which means all the bad actors who are dropshipping or using AI or just doing other cheap mass manufactured goods and pretending that they're handmade or homemade, suddenly they have a lot more visibility. If all the good people leave, you only have the bad actors left behind, which will then take over the platform. It's kind of like how men not approaching women in public has backfired because the good men that might have actually had something nice to say aren't doing it anymore. And the only people that approach women anymore are the douchebags who were going to do it anyway. Kind of an adverse consequence type thing. All the good people protested and left, and all the bad people are left behind to get all the traffic that the good people would have gotten had they not left.
CEO was going on interviews telling the media that each of our sellers is a blade of grass in a tornado. They're someone you haven't heard of. This comment was not taken well by the public.
What does that even mean? A blade of grass in a
The
tornado?
billionaire Wall Street types in charge of Etsy see us as blades of grass underfoot. They can do whatever they want to us, extract whatever they want from us in the form of additional fees out of our sales, additional time spent working for free to adapt to their constant profit-seeking changes. But despite the punch in the face, many Etsy sellers stayed on the platform. Why? Because as you've probably figured, there was nowhere else to go. No other platform as big as Etsy supports craft businesses like Etsy. I've tried to leave so many times. It's a sad fact that a one-woman shop like mine simply does not have the power to dominate Google searches to the extent of a giant corporation like Etsy. It's a sad fact that no matter what Etsy decides to extract from us in the form of additional fees or additional time spent working for free, most of us are stuck on the platform. Individually, we are powerless, but we are individuals no more.
And that's the struggle of monopolies. It's like if you want to sell something, but Amazon won't let you sell it on Amazon, I mean, that's like 90% of your potential customer base is just gone. That's why Amazon is able to abuse their sellers so much with all sorts of platform fees and weird rules, et cetera, because, I mean, where else are you going to sell? You can try and sell on Walmart. Nobody goes to Walmart. And then between the two of them, that's it. Like, that's your whole potential customer base right there is on those two websites, and you have no alternative. Except with Etsy, you don't even have the one alternative that, you know, Amazon has in Walmart. You just have nothing. You can only sell it on your own website, and that's it.
2023 came with hopes that Etsy would be better, but we're quickly killed with the rise of dropshippers.
There are a lot of companies, many based in China, who sell products, the same products they're listing on Etsy, to companies like Shein, Temu, and they say, hey, this is a handmade product, when it's not. Now in 2023, The Guardian actually published an article, the investigation by the Consumer Group, which found rogue sellers charging up to 7 times more than on other websites for the items, falsely claiming they were made by hand. One Etsy seller had 19 handmade items, handmade, on sale, but 6 were from Asda, 1 was from the furnishing retailer Dunelm, and 1 from B&M. In another case, even the seller with 105 items listed on Etsy was not real, with the profile picture associated with the account being a stock image of a woman wearing a suit.
And it also kind of, in a perverse way, makes sense, right? Because if you're drop shipping something from China and you're charging a 700% mock-up on it, and Etsy raises their platform fees, that doesn't really cut into your profit margins that much because you're making so much money on the item. If you're an independent seller and you can only create, 10 or 20 items a week, well, then 1.5% is huge because you have very small profit margins. That's like hundreds of hours of your labor. But if you're just drop shipping it from China and you're not actually doing anything, all you're doing is taking a 1.5% less profit on each item, which is like nothing to you. You move volumes, not quality. It's all quantity, which is just another way that Etsy is alienating people that are actually making their platform good in the first place and replacing them with people that are just mass drop shipping cheap items from other countries.
People are upcharging products because they think they can, because it says it's handmade. They're kind of making a mockery of handmade products because, yeah, handmade stuff is more expensive. Go figure.
Although Etsy claims dropshipping is not allowed on Etsy, it only takes 5
That is such garbage. That is the most don't ask, don't tell ever. There are apps that plug into Etsy shops and allow you to dropship directly from Alibaba and Temu. I think Odoo does it. I saw it sponsored somewhere where someone was advertising an app that lets you plug from Temu or Alibaba or one of those other websites directly into Etsy, and it'll upload the listings for you and you can just select the price. But it'll do like the product descriptions and the images and everything for you. Yeah, sure, it's not allowed, but if it makes enough money, obviously they're not going to do anything about it.
5 minutes to find a dropshipper selling China-made products on the platform.
I went on Etsy to try to find handmade jewelry made from higher quality metals and to support small businesses in the process because I'm a good person. And it was flooded with tons of cute earrings from one seller, taking up 39 out of the 48 spots on the front page. Caitlin Minimalist. Everything about her profile touts that this is a small business from someone named Caitlin. Handcrafted with love, it says on the Etsy store profile. On Instagram, this company is Asian female founded. And again, jewelry crafted with love. I was ready to buy from this small Asian female-owned business. This small business with almost 3 million sales and 30 employees, where several of their products are found on Alibaba.com, a dropshipping or wholesale website for cheap mass-produced goods to markup. Like this $3 ring she sells for $27, while marketing it as a higher quality product than it actually is. I mean, all the listings say it's handmade, which is just
100% this. I used to shop on Etsy a lot. The last thing I bought on there was a bag which claimed to be
It would also be so easy for Etsy to check this, right? Because you can just have a scraper that checks any images that are uploaded to your website against Google reverse image search and see if that's available on Temu or Alibaba or AliExpress. This is the most easily solvable problem ever. It would take almost no effort to have an AI scan images on one website and then check it against images on the other website and see if they can find the same product. And if they can, you just ban that IP forever. But of course, Etsy's not doing that because this is where they make their money.
Handmade by an independent artist in the UK. When it arrived, it had a shipping label that had clearly come from China. This is a really big problem because it drastically killed the quality of products on Etsy and increased competition for real sellers.
2023 was a turning point. My sales took a nosedive and they've only continued to decline. 3 years ago, I was making consistent daily and weekly sales. Now, I'm lucky if I get one sale a week.
If only it stopped there. By this time, many Etsy sellers were experiencing lower sales because of these dropshippers. Some were already going independent by choosing to build their social media or website. The trust...
And I think that's just the way you have to go. In the same way that YouTube or Instagram allow you to broadcast yourself and build your own, businesses off of it, I think Etsy has just gone the way of an Amazon. And it doesn't matter anymore. It's just another platform to import cheap Chinese products and try and sell them at a huge markup. You got to go totally independent now, which sucks because a lot of these people had come to rely on this from Etsy, but if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice.
Etsy had with sellers was on shaky ground. All they had to do to not wreck everything was protect the sellers their platform was built upon and ensure no other trend or corporate interest would influence their decisions at the expense of the 7 million sellers using the app. But then came AI.
Can you sell
This is like the very definition of the plot thickens. But wait, there's more.
AI generated stuff on Etsy? The answer is yes.
What if I tell you that adding a simple description to a cocktail design could potentially earn you up to $10,000 per month? This Etsy store sells only cocktail wall art and has already generated over $5,000 in total sales, with one listing alone making a total.
All of a sudden, anybody could make a design on Midjourney and sell it as handmade. The finance bros saw the opportunity and so did Etsy. They had finally...
Yeah, see the short-term opportunity, because if you're a finance bro, you could do this and you could get away with it for maybe 2, 3, 4 months, and then people start to get wise to it. They catch on to it. But you don't really care if your account gets banned because you've made, your 5 or 6 figures. So the same thing with Etsy. They're going to see a huge spike in sales as people don't realize that stuff is AI generated. But as people become more aware of what stuff is AI generated, what stuff is not, they're going to stop using Etsy altogether. It's such a bizarrely short-sighted play to get a bunch of money now and basically kill the golden goose. All your goodwill is going to be gone. Your sellers are going to leave and your buyers are going to leave because you're no better than any of the other platforms like Amazon. And at least with Amazon, you can get like Prime and watch good shows. But with the Etsy, all you had was these small independent sellers and you decided to sacrifice them for money.
Abandoned their original vision.
To create an online marketplace where independent artisans and crafters could sell their handmade goods, vintage items, and craft supplies. And At the time, there was a huge gap in the market for a platform that catered specifically to individual makers who wanted to sell their creations without all the corporate red tape and traditional retail pressures that are behind mass-produced items.
But despite the pushback made by the community, Etsy published the article that would change their legacy forever. After carefully considering the complex issues surrounding AI-generated content, we have decided to continue to allow sellers to use their original prompts in combination with AI tools to create the artwork they sell on Etsy. It's not that sellers hate it.
What is that phrasing? It's like trying to make it seem like it's original in any way, but it's not. It's AI. After carefully considering the complex issues surrounding AI-generated content, it's really not that complex. It doesn't count as creating art. Decided to allow sellers to use their original prompts in combination with AI tools to create the artwork they sell. You're not creating artwork and you're not doing anything original. This is just such a bad take from Etsy, but they see the money because everybody that has the word AI anywhere is of course getting just filled with investors. So of course Etsy wants in on that, and there's not really any way AI can benefit Etsy specifically. So they're going to let AI products try and benefit the platform.
AI. It's that it killed the entire point of selling on Etsy in the first place. Etsy was built to be the platform for hand-created products. Etsy themselves use this as a tagline in their advertisements.
Etsy.
But Etsy didn't really have much of a choice here. They had to make money, and the CEO was willing to do whatever it takes. Before you jump into conclusion, take a look at the facts. The last CEO that did not meet quarterly earnings was fired back in 2017, along with 80 employees.
Well, yeah, but like any CEO that comes in is like, oh, we got to get back to our homemade roots. They're going to have a huge issue because after they kick off all the AI sellers and the cheap dropshippers, there's going to be nobody on the site. So you're going to inevitably take a dip, and it's going to take a while for sellers to trust the platform enough to start coming back. So you've got like maybe a 1 to 3 year gap where nobody wants to sell on Etsy because of how badly it screwed them over. So you have to persuade them to come back to the platform. And in that time, you're going to lose a bunch of money. But it's a long-term play. In the long term, people will come back and Etsy will become what it once was, and people will start buying and they'll start making money again. But in the short term, it's going to absolutely suck. But the opposite side of that is in the short term, you can make a lot of money by allowing people to dropship and use AI. But in the long term, that's going to destroy the company, which is actually what it's doing right now. If we look at like Etsy stock over the past 5 years, look at this. It is not doing well. It's down by 54%. Instead of making a long-term play like they did, in their early days where it took off and then really took off during the pandemic, they decided to make short-term plays of AI and drop shipping, and look at the crash that they've experienced because of this, because of course they have. All their goodwill and what they stood for is just gone.
Etsy's board made it clear that they were fully prepared to take any actions necessary to protect the best interests of all shareholders. And the new CEO...
Protecting the best interests of the shareholders is the reason that basically any company that becomes a shadow or a shell of itself fails. Think of any good company. Netflix, when it first started and streaming became a big thing, outstanding company. And then for the sake of the shareholders, I mean, they are what they are now, where it's like $25 a month or whatever for the expensive plan.
Was not willing to take any chances. With the inflow of AI, it became impossible to stand out when AI listings were cheaper and also offered faster shipping times compared to handmade goods.
For example, this store here started in 2024, so this year, and they already have almost 16,000 sales and boast offering over 800 embroidery patterns. You did not create those yourself in less than a year without using AI, let alone actually stitch all of those patterns to photograph. You want to know how long it takes me to stitch one hoop like this? 100 hours.
I think the big question will be, do the buyers of Etsy care enough to make that distinction? Because at the end of the day, if the buyers don't care and they continue to purchase the AI slop that's thrown out there or the cheap dropship products from other countries, then the company's making money and they won't do anything about it. Even if all the real human good small business sellers leave, if the AI and dropshipped slop can continue to make the company so much money that they don't care, then like they don't have any motivation to change things, right? And that's not me supporting it. I think that's an atrocity. That sucks so bad, both for the sellers and just in general to people who wanted to support small businesses but now no longer can because no website exists where they can actually do that. But you have to have like the vast majority of buyers decide that they're not going to purchase this thing in order for a change to actually happen. Like we saw with Target. The vast majority of buyers said in protest of whatever specific thing it is that upset me, I'm not going to purchase from Target. And now Target's like stocks are falling, people aren't buying from their stores, they ousted their CEO, et cetera, et cetera. That's the kind of impact you would need on Etsy for this to actually change. And I don't know if that's going to happen. I hope it will. I think that would be awesome if it did and they experience so much pain that they're either forced to change or a competitor crops up, but I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Etsy credit, they did try to tackle the issue. but ended up flagging so many innocent sellers' accounts in the process.
This is such a panic solution.
My boyfriend's Etsy shop just got suspended.
Absolutely nothing has changed on my Etsy recently. Haven't changed any of my policies, haven't had any complaints from customers, nothing. It's just been very smooth sailing. And actually, if anything, my sales have picked up in the last month or two. New Year's Day, I get an email from Etsy saying that my account has been permanently suspended and I will never be able to reopen the shop or even buy anything on Etsy anymore.
At this point, sellers had enough. Over 900K sellers left the marketplace in 2024 to support other competitors like GoImagine. To be honest, Etsy doesn't give a f anymore. They're moving quickly, trying to compete with the likes of Temu and Amazon, who are absolutely dominating the market now. And it's clear they're willing to sacrifice some of their sellers to do so.
They're not really making enough profit margin on Etsy anymore. But because Etsy's still there, it's very hard for alternatives to grow, right? So they've kind of...
I can't name a single Etsy alternative. Like he mentioned GoImagine, but aside from that, like I can't think of anything. If I want to buy something cool and handmade, like I wouldn't even know where to start. Maybe Facebook Marketplace, other than looking locally on like Craigslist or OfferUp or something like that. Like it's actively so difficult to find handmade stuff.
Really taken over this space and then shifted and are now like still sitting in that space.
Their stock price continues to fall despite all the sacrifices. Even though Etsy had a good year, earning $2.8 billion, up 2% from 2023, but it's not paying off. They've continued to lose traffic. Their direction from now will depend solely on how much they're willing to risk profit for your satisfaction.
That's the story of Etsy's rise and fall in the eyes of the handmade community. It started with a vision to support artists, but may have lost its way along the path to profit.
Great video from Internet Education. They're linked in the description. Thanks so much for watching.